Good evening and welcome to this evening's webinar on farming and biodiversity here in County Leitrim. My name is Cian Condon. I'm a dry stock advisor here in County Leitrim. I'm based primarily in the Manorhamilton office. Tonight I'm joined by Justin Warnock, councillor and farmer, James Madden, veterinary officer with the County Council, Ashton Cartwright of Leitrim Development Company, and Caroline Sullivan, who's working on the Acres Cooperation Project for North Connacht, Ulster. And they'll be outlining some details on the new Leitrim Sustainable Agriculture Group, some plans for the future, and then some important information with regard to biodiversity here in County Leitrim and the new Acre scheme, which is likely to be of importance to many of you. We'd like to keep things as interactive as possible. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a question and answer function. So please feel free to send in your questions and right throughout tonight's presentations, and I will put them to the panel towards the end. Without any further ado, I'm going to call on James to come in now, if James is available there. Just give it 1 second there, please. For those of you, if you're unfamiliar, if you haven't come across the Leitrim Sustainable Agriculture Group up to date, it's quite recently formed. Of course, lockdown probably put a lot of the brakes on that, but it was recently formed by a number of the parties involved, and there have been a good few online meetings to try and get the initial discussion going with this initial group of farmers, and then hopefully broadening it out much wider across a lot of farms and families and communities right throughout the county. At this point, I'm going to go to James now. James, if you can hear me there.
Thanks, thanks very much, Cian.
Thanks very much.
Good evening, everyone. You're very welcome to our first webinar. It's my great pleasure to be able to introduce a great lineup tonight. So we're going to hopefully have a really interesting night. We're going to discuss the Acre scheme, and we're going to discuss the biodiversity plan for Leitrim. Just for anyone new here who isn't familiar with our group, we set up the group last year, in May of last year, the Leitrim Sustainable Agriculture Group. And the aim is to promote sustainable agriculture in Leitrim, and also to make agriculture more sustainable in Leitrim. That means that to make it more maybe financially advantageous for farmers, to keep more farmers on the land, to allow intergenerational transfer of farms, and to make that an economic possibility. And we're hoping to do that by capitalizing on the ecological goods and services in Leitrim. We're hoping to make that a marketable commodity for farmers, that they can improve the environment and that way gain financially from doing so. And we see that as the best model towards a better future for farmers, a better future for the consumer, a better future for the environment. We believe in the concept of one health. We believe that animals, the environment, and human health are all interlinked, and cannot be separated from each other. And we're particularly interested in the health of our animals in Leitrim and the health of our environment, and in promoting those. And in so doing, we hope that it'll provide a model for other places and other farms within the country to follow. Leitrim, as you know, is hugely ecologically wealthy. It's got enormous ecological capital. It's beautiful mountains and streams. We've got some of the most pristine water bodies in the country. We've got some of the most amazing mountains and scenery, and we've got some of the most diverse wildlife to be seen in the country. In short, we've got water quality, we've got biodiversity, we've got environmental capital, and we hope to utilize that going forward and to develop a synergy between the farmers and the other stakeholders in the county, which we can drive that forward. So that's our mission, that's our goal. Just in respect of this particular project, we have got funding from the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and I want to thank Sarah Malone and Leitrim County Council for facilitating that. Indeed, Leitrim County Council also put some joint funding towards this project. So we've been successful in drawing down that funding from the National Parks and Wildlife Service. It's an exciting project. There's a number of elements. There's this webinar, which is the initial event. We've got a video planned, and we've got two willing farmers who are going to participate in our video. So we're looking forward to that, and that's kicking off in September. We have two farm walks, one on the 2nd of September and one on the 16th of September. We'll be mentioning those a little bit later. And I just want to, in advance, thank the two farmers involved in the farm walks, and we'll be giving you the detail on those later on. Then the final element of the project, and a very important element, is we're looking towards making this project a stepping stone towards maybe another larger, more ambitious project. So we're going to use the learnings from this project towards a future project, and we'll encapsulate that in the report. And we're already looking at possibilities of cross-border project, or maybe a European Innovative Partnership project, an EIP. So we're looking at what are the possibilities for our group going forward. We're always looking for new members as well. So if you think of someone who would be a good, suitable member to join the group and be interested in what we do, let us know, let me know, or let Jerry know, and we'll get them signed up. So without any further ado, I'll pass you back to Cian and wish you a really interesting evening. Thanks, Cian.
Thanks very much, James. That's great. As James was saying there, Leitrim, is a fantastic county full of loads of biodiversity. We can't farm it particularly intensively, at least most of the parts of the county. So there's a huge diversity, or a huge biodiversity, a huge amount of species of both plants and animals right throughout the county. And this has been demonstrated and brought together by a project and a report here done by the Leitrim Development Company. And I'd look for Aisling to please come on screen here, and Aisling will outline some of the details that are from that project and that report. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Cian, and thanks, James, and thank you for having me here this evening at your Farming for Biodiversity in Leitrim webinar. I'm going to now just share with you my presentation. I hope everyone can hear me okay, and I'm going to turn off my camera when I'm sharing the presentation, if that's okay. Now, I hope everyone can see that the presentation there. So just a little introduction to myself. As Cian said, I'm Aisling Cartwright, Rural Development Project Officer with Leitrim Development Company. I've worked with Leitrim Development Company for over 10 years now, working on the LEADER programme. Background to myself, I'm not a Leitrim lady at all. I'm from County Cavan. I'm married to a full-time dairy and beef farmer. So I'm acutely aware of the importance of biodiversity and climate change in farming for the future. So just to give you an overview of my presentation this evening, we'll look at the background to the Leitrim Biodiversity Action Plan, where it came from and who funded it. We'll look at the aim of the plan. We'll look at biodiversity in County Leitrim, the themes of the plan, and some of the actions as outlined in the plan. So the County Leitrim Biodiversity Action Plan was funded under the LEADER programme in County Leitrim, the Rural Development LEADER programme. And it was funded at 90% funding, and the match funding then was provided by ourselves in Leitrim Development Company and Leitrim County Council. The LEADER programme itself, one of the main themes of the LEADER programme is the rural environment. And as a result, in Leitrim, we set out to develop a county-based biodiversity plan that sets out a strategic roadmap for the protection of the natural environment. The plan is very much a collaborative-based plan, and it's a community-based plan. So while Leitrim County Council and ourselves are involved, it's about a whole range of stakeholders, from individuals, farmers, community groups, the various statutory agencies and organisations and bodies. So no one person owns this plan, it's a plan for everybody in the county. So the actual aim of the plan is very simply to raise awareness of biodiversity amongst individuals and communities in County Leitrim by providing support, guidance and encouragement to engage with biodiversity through education and practical conservation participation. It is hoped that the Biodiversity Action Plan will be beneficial in guiding and supporting actions at a community and a local level in the county. Actions are focused on being achievable and realistic within the time frame of the plan. So the plan runs from 2022 to 2027. So now a bit about biodiversity in County Leitrim. So I suppose we're all aware that we have a great diversity, and James and Cian alluded to this already. We have a great diversity of habitats, species, flora and fauna in County Leitrim. And our habitats include wetland, peatland, woodland, grassland, and we can't forget our small coastal habitats in the north of the county. But as well as that, each one of you, whether it's your gardens and our farms, we all have different habitat types on our farms, which host an array and support an array of flora and fauna. So our wildlife is right across the whole of the county. But in Ireland and the EU, we have a number of designated sites. Now, some of you may be aware of these already, but I will go through them just for anyone that mightn't be aware. So at a European level, we have Natura 2000 sites, they're called, and they're designated at European level, as I say. So they're what's called Special Areas of Conservation, or SACs. And these are designated under the EU Habitats Directive, and they were transposed into Irish law through the European Communities Regulation in 2011. SACs are a network of sites designated to protect a range of internationally important habitats and species. And we have 8 of these SACs, or Special Areas of Conservation, in Leitrim. So an example of them would include Ben Bulben, Glenif and the Glenage Complex. We have Loch Melvin, Loch Gill and the Rue Mountains, for example. Then at an EU level, we also have special protection areas, and these are designated under the EU Birds Directive. And they're specifically for the protection of bird species listed under Annex 1 of the directive. And the SPA in County Leitrim, or Special Protection Area, is the Sligo Leitrim Uplands. And this area is designated for important populations of peregrine falcon and chow. So you can see a picture of them there in flight on your screen. So in total, these European designated sites in County Leitrim take up approximately 185 square kilometres of the land, which is equivalent to just under 12% of the county's land area. Now, as well as our European designated sites, we have a number of national designated sites, and these are known as natural heritage areas. We have 9 natural heritage areas in Leitrim, and these are considered important in terms of the species that plants and animals or other habitats present. Examples of these would include the Rin River, Corrie Mountain, Cashel Bog, Cornageher Bog. Now in Ireland, we also have proposed natural heritage areas, and in Leitrim we have 28 of these. These are sites of significance for wildlife and habitats. And in Leitrim, we have several lakes and woodland habitats proposed as natural heritage areas. So an example would be Garradice Loch. Now, what happened was, this was a list that was published in 1995 by, I think it was the National Parks and Wildlife, but they never got full designation to be full natural heritage areas. However, they're treated very similar. So with the Natura sites that are designated, which are the special areas of conservation, special protection areas, I said we had 185 square kilometres of those designated in the county. And with the 9 natural heritage areas, we've approximately just over 53 square kilometres designated under those. And then with our natural proposed heritage areas, it'll be even larger areas of the county. Now, I suppose if anyone wanted more information on these, the National Parks and Wildlife website have details. You can go in and look at protected sites. You can search by county, and it'll give you the list of them in every county in Ireland. And there's also a great website online called the Heritage Maps, heritagemaps.ie. And you can actually look up your local area and see if you are within any of these protected sites or near them. And some of you as farmers will be very aware of these sites, particularly if you looked for planning permission in the past for perhaps new slatted sheds or buildings. If you are within or close to any of these or a buffer zone of these areas that are designated, you would have to do screenings for environmental assessments or reports around the ecology and the environment. But we're all very aware that biodiversity and important habitats and species are not only confined to designated sites and protected areas. We have a wealth of wildlife right across County Leitrim. We have our wetlands, we have native woodlands. We're actually, in terms of semi-natural grassland, we're very lucky in that we have great high nature value farmland, particularly in the north of the county, because the county isn't as intensively farmed as southern counties in Ireland. We're all aware that there's a lot of threats to biodiversity as well. I think I have maps here to show you the Leitrim special protection areas and the special areas of conservation. So you can see the special protection area for the birds up there in red in North Leitrim, and then the special areas of conservation are outlined there also, hatched in blue. And then we have the natural heritage areas and the proposed natural heritage areas. So they're more distributed throughout the county. But as I said, we're all aware that there's lots of threats to biodiversity. And I suppose I don't need, a lot of you already know these threats, but habitat fragmentation, for instance, has led to the breaking up of a lot of different habitats and species in the county. We also have things like coniferous afforestation, intensive farming practices in some areas, water body degradation, decline of our pollinators, the spread of invasive species in particular areas, and then of course climate change. But our plan is to set out to, I suppose, to allow people to understand and become aware of their biodiversity as a first point of call. And the main themes of the plan, there's 5 main themes set out here. And what I'll do is I'll go through each of the themes in a little bit more detail and outline some of the actions that are taking place and that are proposed under each of these themes. So theme 1 is about improving our knowledge of the biodiversity resource. So actions here focus on increasing our knowledge of our landscape through surveying, mapping and recording of habitats and species in the county. So some examples of the actions. So on this slide here, you'll see we have the actions on the left-hand side. We have potential sources of support, information, knowledge, and our funding, and their acronyms there, but they're all listed on the other side. So LCC is Leitrim County Council, HC is Heritage Council, so they're all there. LAWPRO is the Local Authorities Water Programme. So under this improving our knowledge of the biodiversity resource, there's a number of actions, I suppose, that have already taken place and that we're working on. So for instance, community biodiversity plans. The Heritage Council and Leitrim County Council got funding to carry out a number of biodiversity plans at a local level for some of the towns and villages in the municipal districts in the county. In terms of bird surveys, a SWIFT survey has been carried out in the county, and there's been further projects relating to that, along with a wetland survey. We're also looking at the appointment of a biodiversity officer for the county, because currently we have no biodiversity officer in County Leitrim. So the Leitrim County Council and our councillors are lobbying to get one of those in place. So there are a few examples of some of the actions under that theme. Theme 2 then relates to the protection of wildlife corridors and biodiversity hotspots. So this focuses on raising awareness of the importance of both designated and undesignated areas for wildlife and the vulnerability of habitats and species within them to help achieve sustainable use. So if we look at the actions under this, for instance, there's a new recreation strategy being developed in County Leitrim, and we want to ensure that biodiversity is mainstreamed into all proposals within that strategy. We're also going to encourage the creation of wildlife and biodiversity into trails in the county, the development of our walking trails. And you can see an example there in the photograph on the top. That was in Bohern and Ave at Clune, which is a lovely biodiversity resort around wetland areas in Clune. We'll support communities and groups to assess conditions of hedgerows and support the expansion of the woodland scheme. And then we work along with the local authority water programme and inland fisheries around water protection also. So theme 3 is about biodiversity awareness, education and training. So this is about raising awareness and providing access to biodiversity training, which will help people to gain knowledge, motivation and confidence to undertake actions for biodiversity. So I suppose actions here are designated to encourage and support individuals, communities, farmers, employment scheme workers, local authority staff and everybody in the county and with skills around biodiversity conservation. So actions progressing in this area would include, we've already ran online biodiversity training in the springtime of this year. We are also proposing to have a number of biodiversity workshops throughout September and October, which I can advertise through the Sustainable Agriculture Group here, and I'll send you out details when they're fully finalised. So they're around pollinators, hedgerows, farming for biodiversity, gardening for biodiversity. We're also going to work with Leave No Trace on the Leave No Trace principles and have a certified day course on that. We're going to continue to work along with the Sustainable Agriculture Group here on raising awareness of the importance of biodiversity in farming and high nature value farming, and working with James on the potential of further funding for the project. And then public engagement, be that awareness raising events on wildlife, and just getting the message out there to the entire community about the importance of biodiversity. And around, I think the date is the 16th of October, we're having a large event in the Organic Centre with Éanna Ní Launa. You're probably aware of Éanna Ní Launa, the presenter, and she's a biologist, and she'll be coming along to that event. And again, we can circulate details of that to the group later on. So team 4 is about tackling invasive species. So by being able to recognise invasive species, that's the most important thing. A lot of people don't recognise it, the different types of invasive species yet, be that plant or animal, and implement regulated removal and containment strategies. So in order to protect our native biodiversity, so these invasive species don't become threats. So actions include providing training in land and water-based invasive species. And this will be to farmers, contractors, community employment scheme workers, potentially local authority staff, landowners, and everybody, so that they can recognise and understand about the various invasive species and how to go about tackling them, rather than taking a strimmer out to them or pulling them up. And then also working with the likes of Inland Fisheries Ireland and the local authority water programme, Waterways Ireland, about biosecurity measures along our many lakes and rivers here in the county also. Then our final theme is the biodiversity and climate change theme. And climate change, as you all know, is considered the most urgent environmental issue facing us today. Every time you turn on the television or open the newspaper, there's something about it. But everybody needs to play their part. I know that farmers have to reduce their carbon emissions, but it's about every section of society doing their bit. So it's about reducing, reusing and recycling on a daily basis, using public transport, walking or cycling where possible, planting native species of trees and plants, implementing sustainable soil management on our farms, retaining hedgerows where possible, and incorporating green energy into our homes and farms and businesses. So examples of some of the actions here would be to support waste reduction and water conservation projects, to look at sustainable energy in our buildings, whether that's water conservation or incorporating solar panels into our buildings, looking at green businesses and supporting them, as well as looking at existing businesses and helping them to install energy efficiency and renewable energy measures. And under the LEADER programme, we have provided funding to a number of community groups for solar panels and electric vehicle chargers and new water systems, and the same with businesses. We've recently funded the Enterprise Centre in Bannamore for solar panels. We've done work with the Mohill Enterprise Centre, and we work with a number of businesses also in the county to install solar panels and PV systems. And then promote sustainable, environmentally friendly farming practices, like the Sustainable Agriculture Group is doing, and exploring on-farm biodiversity options. So there are some examples of the actions under the plan. The plan can be found on our website. You have to access the downloads on your laptop or your PC, and it's www.ldco.ie. Then you click on downloads and you'll get to the biodiversity action plan there. Or alternatively, you can go to the Leitrim County Council website under community and culture, then heritage and publications. And there's several interesting publications there on some of the surveys that have been carried out around the wetland survey, the SWIFT survey, and you'll also get the biodiversity plan there. So I suppose we hope that everyone will get involved in the plan, either through local community projects, through farming projects like this one, or by participating in the various training and the workshops and the awareness raising events that we'll have planned. The plan will also advise decision-making processes relating to the environment and biodiversity within the county, and will be also a useful asset in leveraging further funding for environmental and biodiversity projects in the county in the future. It's hoped that the plan will be beneficial in guiding and supporting action, I said, at a community and a local level. And it aims to guide local communities and stakeholders in their efforts to enhance, protect, and promote and learn more about our natural environment and our biodiversity, and maximise the benefits of it for the future and for the people of our county. While some of the actions obviously are more complex than others, the input of communities, agencies, organisations, and farmers like yourself is key to delivery and implementation of our plan. So that's all from me. I'd like to thank you for your attention this evening. And if there's questions, I think we'll be doing questions at the end. So I'll hand you back to Cian now, who will go through the rest of the evening with you. So thank you.
Yes, Caroline. My video. Oh, there we are. Our thanks, Aisling. That's great. Good outline of some of the biodiversity and very useful report there to have, and given what we have here in this county. And I think that's something which we discussed from the very outset as part of this agriculture group, is looking and recognising what's there, what's in our hedges, what's under our feet every day when we're walking the land. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to Caroline. Caroline is working with the Acres team on the cooperation project, and I'll call on Caroline there to share her screen. And just while Caroline's getting that sorted, I'll just remind you that there is the question and answer function at the bottom of the screen there. So if you do have any questions from any of the speakers here this evening, or with regard to the group itself, please feel free to put them in the question and answer function, and I'll put it to the panel there before the end. See, Caroline's getting ready to set up, so thanks very much, Caroline.
Unmute. You'd think at this stage I'd remember to unmute. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Caroline Sullivan, and I am the program manager for the new Acres CP cooperation project area that is that covers North Connacht and Ulster. So Leitrim, a lot of Leitrim is included in that area, and that's why I'm speaking here this evening. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself. I did a PhD in NUI Galway, and following that I did some postdoctoral research looking into what exactly is describing, I suppose, high nature value farmland in Ireland. It was Department of Agriculture funded research, and I surveyed around 100 farms across the country, focusing on high nature value farmland areas. That research was done based in IT Sligo, and I would have surveyed 10 farms in Leitrim in particular, because of the high nature value, the fact that almost all the farms in that area are high nature value, as Aisling mentioned. Since then, I've been working on, Cian mentioned EIPs. I've been working on the Hen Harrier project EIP, which has rolled out what's called a results-based type program across Hen Harrier SPAs in 9 counties across Ireland. So I'm kind of taking that Hen Harrier project experience, and we're going to apply that to the North Connacht Ulster area. So now I'm just going to move through the presentation proper for you. So there are a couple of nice images of the type of landscapes we're going to be dealing with, and some of the type of farming that we're going to be dealing with as well. And the Sligo Leitrim area is particularly beautiful, as has been mentioned already. So for those of you who aren't familiar, what is Acres? It's the successor to GLAS, and there are 2 streams in this new Department of Agriculture scheme, and that is Acres National and Acres CP. Acres CP is Acres Cooperation Project. And this is a bit of a new departure. It moves away from traditional action-based agri-environment schemes, and it moves towards a hybrid results-based approach. I'll talk a little bit about what that means. So first of all, what does results-based mean? Particularly for those of you who are here who are farmers, what will it mean for you? It's very simple. It's payment for achievement of a defined environmental result. So that means in an Irish context, the fields are walked and they are scored on a score between 0 and 10. The higher the score, the higher the payment. In the schemes in Ireland that exist, if you score a 0, 1, 2, or 3, you don't get anything, because it depends on what your result is, but on a scale of 0 to 10, if you're getting 1, 2, or 3, you're not really delivering an awful lot, to be fair. So why would you bother with a results-based approach? There really is a much clearer link between payment and achievement of ecosystem service goals. Same as anything, any market product, the more you deliver, the higher the payment. And that makes sense for a lot of people, and it's easy to buy into. There are very simplified plans off the back of that. There's no strong prescriptions, there's no mowing dates or stock type that have to go into a field at any particular time. Really, you just say, this is what we're looking for, and however you want to achieve it is fine by us. Calendar farming is not appropriate, and it's certainly not appropriate in the like of the Leitrim landscape, where you're at the mercy of weather every month of the year. And there's the simplified plan is a really good approach, and then there's a provision of ecosystem service goals such as biodiversity or good water quality, and they become an integral part of the farming system, which is really, really important. It needs to become as important to deliver these things or to consider these things in your day-to-day farming as it is to fatten your calf or put your sheep up onto the commonage. It keeps decision making in the hands of the farmer. And certainly the feedback from Burren program farmers who've been in this type of program for a long time, and the hen harrier program farmers that I've been dealing with over the last number of years, that's really important. Autonomy in farming is really key. I mentioned the Burren program. It's been in place for about 12 years. And since then, so they have about 350, 400 farmers in that program in a very specific region in Ireland. But the results-based approach has also been applied by the freshwater pole mussel and the hen harrier program since 2017 and 2018, with about 2,500 farmers in results-based programs in Ireland to date. The pearl mussel project and the hen harrier program really were quite different because they were the first large-scale pilots outside of the Burren, and they could be applied more widely throughout Ireland. So an important target habitat in the hen harrier project was wet grassland. Any of you who are farming know that wet grassland is synonymous with Leitrim as well. So you could take the scorecards that we've been using in the hen harrier program and apply them to Leitrim really easily, or with some adaptations, whereas you couldn't really do that with a Burren scorecard, which deals with a very different dry, free draining habitat, which isn't as frequent in Leitrim for sure. So the current CAP strategic plan incorporates a results-based approach into the national scheme, which is really exciting. And Acres CP is this core results-based approach. And to a lesser extent, elements in Acres General will also be results-based too, which was going to be very interesting. REAP, which was running last year, and the second year of the pilot is this year, was piloting kind of the national scale approach for the Department of Agriculture, and they're going to move forward with that. So what is a hybrid results-based scheme? Well, in the results-based scheme, the target is defined and scorecards are designed to assess its quality. Your scorecards will change and can be designed to facilitate whatever your target is. Generally, results-based scores in Ireland go from 0 to 10. The scores of 0 to 3 are not payable. If you don't deliver sufficient defined ecosystem services to warrant payment, then you don't get any. Payments begin at a score of 4 generally. Arguably that's quite low, but you know, in Ireland where a pass rate is usually 40%, that's where we're starting anyway. And there's possibilities there for raising those lower limits as things progress and as things improve, which would be really nice to see. Land with scores of less than 10 may need specific actions to help improve the management, and that's where the hybrid comes in. So a hybrid scheme funds or co-funds actions, specific things that you could do that would help improve your score from year 1 to year 2, for example. And from a taxpayer point of view, that's what you really want to see. You want to see the money that's being paid to farmers to be delivering more and more year on year, particularly as Aisling mentioned, again, in a situation where you're trying to mitigate against climate change, and you're trying to improve water quality and you're trying to improve soil quality. Well, if your payments are increasing year on year and they're increasing because your ecosystem services that you're delivering are increasing, then everybody's winning, hopefully. Actions, they're also called non-productive investments, depending on how technical you want to get. Actions can be investments that help improve farm management, and there can also be landscape level actions. And these are supporting actions that help improve management of livestock to improve your habitat quality. These are all very, very specific to the situation in a field or on a farm. But you know, if you needed an improved grazing infrastructure, then we could co-fund that sort of thing. Gates fencing, water trucks, piping, solar powered electric fencing is quite popular. All those things can be funded or co-funded through acres CP, which is really, really great. Some actions would have a pure environmental target, and those would typically be 100% funded. And those things would be wild bird cover, pond creation, drain blocking. There would be no real agricultural output to these things. They're purely for the environment, and so farmers who elect to do them would get 100% payment, usually cover the costs. And then landscape level actions are things that would be done on a much larger scale. They might involve 5 farmers or 20 shareholders on a commonage, and they would address very specific things as well. Things that could be done and have been done in the Hen Harrier project are drain blocking, implementing fire resilience plans, which are really important in high fire risk areas. Conifer tree removal, particularly where self-sown conifers have gotten very big, or there are an awful lot of self-sown or not self-sown but conifers in field boundaries, for example. And it's really important, this is a very important point to make, these are bespoke depending on the local issues and the required solutions. So you know, this evening I can't say these are the 5 landscape level actions we're going to implement in 2023, because we need to know what the issues are and delve into those more deeply before we can provide a solution for them. As I mentioned, CP stands for Cooperation Project. There are 8 areas, and they're all dominated by high nature value farmland. Many of them have good or high status rivers, and water quality is going to be a very important emphasis here as well. The CP teams in place are going to deliver a local action plan, work with farmers. They're going to devise a local action plan and work with farmers to deliver the key things in that plan, hopefully. And the Department of Agriculture aim to recruit 20,000 farmers into these acre CP areas in 2023 and 2024. And they will be assessed using scorecards. A lot of you might have seen this already, but I'll just show you again. So there are 8 areas there. So here, starting at the top, there's Donegal. Here's North Connacht Ulster. It's a little bit of Monaghan, West Cavan, Leitrim, a little bit of Sligo, and a little bit of Roscommon. And here is the Northwest Connacht, South Mayo, Connemara here, and then we've got the Burren, West Cork, Kerry. This really large area here is the Midwest Southern Uplands. It's an expansion of the Hen Harrier project area. And then there's there is the southeast area along the east coast. The Hen Harrier project are managing a lot of those areas. So the Hen Harrier Project Limited is a private company that won the tender for those areas. So then just in focusing on North Connacht Ulster, and somebody tell me if I'm going over time too much. This is the area focused, zoomed in there, and you can see it covers 5 counties only, so very easy to administer, but a lot of the area is covers County Leitrim, about 54% of it there. Aisling already outlined a lot of the really important things in Leitrim, a lot of SACs, some important SPAs, NHAs, and really some of the biggest natural resources in the country are in Leitrim, and they're there in the form of wet grasslands and this beautiful bocage small field landscape, which I'm looking forward to working with. As I mentioned, water quality is going to be a really important thing that we're going to focus on. There is good and high status water throughout Leitrim, but we will be looking at any areas where it's gone from good to high, or where it's moderate, and see if we can improve on those things. So we'll be trying to identify pressures in those areas and see if there are solutions that we can come up with in collaboration with farmers to address these things. So there's just a couple of images of some of the beautiful wetlands in the area as well. So just kind of wrapping up some specifics. The Acres team have 4 staff in place currently, which is good because we're going to have a job of work ahead of us. So the more people we have on board to do it, the better. So I'm the program manager. Julian Carlier is living in Leitrim, and he's the assistant manager. Hagan O'Neill lives in Sligo. He's the team lead and project officer. And Naomi McMorrow is a project officer, also living in Leitrim. They're all on the webinar this evening as well, and they're raring to go, looking forward to getting stuck into things very soon. We're also in the process of recruiting an additional 3 staff. So if I look a little bit bleary-eyed, it's because I've just completed 2 days of interviews for those positions, which we're hoping to fill really soon. So we have an office set up already in Manor Hamilton. It's on Church Lane. Actually, I won't invite you to visit Julian. He's going to be too busy to accept visitors or make people tea. But the office is there, right in the heart of the cooperation project area, which is brilliant. In terms of our next steps, we're putting together the local action plan. So it focuses the team attention on key environmental assets on the farms in the areas, and we'll be prioritizing them because with the best will in the world, you cannot deliver everything that you might want to deliver, and you have to prioritize and focus on the things that are most likely to be delivered by farmers in these areas. We'll be carrying out consultations before they're finalised, and that'll be a really important opportunity for people to input. So that should be very well advertised before the local action plans are finalised. And then we'll be designing scorecards and adapting them to the local objectives over the coming months before they're implemented next summer. And that will be dependent on the local action plan priorities, but we would expect there will be some key habitat species and water quality targets in there. A really important step that is vital, you can do nothing without doing, is getting the farmers on board. So we will be running lots of information meetings. Things are still in flux and developing at the moment, so it is difficult to give people exact information at the moment, but those information meetings will be rolled out in the next couple of months. And then, of course, we need farmers to apply. So if you have a look online, you can see how to apply. One of the first important things is to sign an access agreement with your advisor, because you must get an advisor to apply on your behalf. And I see one of our Hen Harrier program advisors here, Ollie Crow, this evening. Hi, Ollie. So perhaps he's already applied on your behalf. Just give him more work to do. And that's it, basically. There is my contact details, and like I mentioned, Julian Hagan and Naomi are also contactable. You can contact me, and I'll pass you through to them if you want to speak with them, meet with them, or have them visit your farm. And that's me finished. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Caroline. That was very interesting. Just to bring the attendees up to date here is that we weren't able to get Justin here this evening. Some kind of technological problem on this end prevented him from joining in, but I'm sure many of you will know him personally, and he can fill you in on some of the details of the group itself. Just a few questions that came in there. An interesting one, straight for you, Caroline, is there. Do you know if these areas are to be defined now? Maybe County Development Plan might, if Aisling or James have anything to say on this, to protect them from further impacts on high nature value. So is there any proposal to protect the habitats that have been outlined more than, you know, targeting them with specific actions?
So the map of the area is a combination of the SACs, the NHAs that Aisling outlined, and the high water status areas. So as such, there shouldn't be a need to bring an extra layer of designation, if you will, on top of that. It is a kind of an aggregate of the designations and the known information out there at the moment. But that's the state of play with the map. I don't think it's necessary, but maybe other people have other ideas.
I just if Aisling is there, Aisling, are you there, Aisling? Just a quick question there is just with regard to that report, is where can people get their hands on that report if they're interested in reading more?
Yes, so I outlined that it's available online. We didn't print it off. We're trying to cut back on paper usage. And so it's on our website, www.ldco.ie. It's also on the Leitrim County Council website. And I can also get James to circulate it out to the Sustainable Agriculture Group as well. James might email it out to them. I can get that done.
Okay, that's great. Let me see. I'll put something to James there before the end, if that's okay. But I'll come back to you, Caroline. Just there, you mentioned about consultation and working with the farmers and the families. When is that likely to take place? And you know, how can people get involved, or do you know at this stage what format that?
Yeah, it's really hard to put a timeline on that just yet. But as soon as we're ready to consult, it's really great to see there are so many groups and ways to disseminate information in Leitrim already. That's really heartening. But we would be doing, we would be advertising it similar to how you guys advertise this evening, local radio stations, local farming organizations, and letting yourselves know as well, so that you can let whoever wants to know attend whatever meetings are run. I know with the Hen Harrier program, I would have been involved in a small area in East Galway and East Clare, and we ran 30 meetings in that area. So we'd expect it to be very hard for you to miss a meeting over the time frame that we'll be doing them. And we will be doing them in the evenings that facilitate farmers, in particular part-time farmers, because we know the people that we're dealing with.
Yeah, just a comment that's come in here about at community level, that there was a community wetland forum promoted, but that there was no Leitrim members. I just don't know if you were aware of that, Caroline, that community wetland forum. I know it might be specifically within the remit, but
not aware of it yet.
Yeah.
But Mary, if you pass some of those details on to me. I think you have my email. We'll try and get involved there. We will be, hopefully will be a bigger presence going forward. We still need to touch base with Wild Atlantic Nature, though I'm aware of Derek and the work that he's doing, but we just haven't had the time really to dovetail with him just yet. And then Jerry, you're asking about the rate of payment. That's a very important question, of course. And the department released the payment rates there last week or the week before. The top rate of payment is €400 per hectare, but that is provided you achieve a 10 out of 10. And I think most people know that the top, there's a cap on those payments as well at about €7,000. The details on the payment rates are available, but I can circulate them to anyone who's interested, or I can circulate them to someone here, and you can circulate them more widely to the Leitrim Sustainable Agriculture Group if you want.
Yeah, that's great. And I know since I've become involved with this group, I think that if we have a closely working group, which I think we've endeavored to kind of put together, particularly since lockdown finishes, that there are a lot of fingers and knowledge around the county that people are picking up, and there are things that I've picked up in recent months that I might not have beforehand. And I think that broadening this group, you know, if maybe Mary or other people are out there interested that again, it can all add to the overall knowledge base to try and push things on, to be innovative about what we can do to to assure the future of farms and families, and of course the communities they're in the coming years. There's just another comment there about high nature value lands. You know, a lot of them have been planted in the last number of decades, and I know we've discussed forestry at length in meetings at this point. So I don't know if that's, you know, do you come across that in your line of work, Caroline, about the uplands, and if they're not specifically protected, you know, commonages, or not specifically commonages, but privately owned uplands, if they're designated specifically for a species, they're fine, but beyond that, even though they're high nature value, they may not be.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from now, Brian, because Leitrim is very, very important and undoubtedly high nature value, but it is surprisingly, it's got a surprisingly low proportion of SAC designation. Yeah, look, that's a really important point, and I suppose a lot of the progress on that would come from liaising with forestry, and I mean, they are aware of the high nature value farmland concept, but just seeing if it could be incorporated into the areas. Yeah, it's a bit of a thorny issue. I don't want to get too into it, but yeah, I see your point anyway, Brian.
Yeah, we have, even as recently as last week or the week before, we had a lengthy discussion, you know, in the Mayflower specifically about this. And I could just see Brian's just commented there, the Community Wetland Forum is facilitated by Irish Rural Link. So if you go to their website, anyone that's online that's interested in learning more about it, it's on the Irish Rural Link website. Just one last question. I can see we're just coming up to 9 o'clock. Just one last question, Caroline, is you're part of the Hen Harrier project, but the cooperation areas, they're not specific to Hen Harrier, they're targeted within these areas. Is that correct? Right throughout, as you said, 54% of this, of your particular one, is located within this county. Yes, right, north and south. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge to try and break away from the word hen harrier because it's in the name of the private company, but no, it's just the name of the company that is administering the CP area, and there are a lot of interesting and important targets in the CP area outside of hen harrier, though there are some areas that are very important for hen harrier too, but there are lots of other things that we'll be trying to look after, curlew, red grouse, chough, all the things that Aisling mentioned.
really the area is a hotspot for really beautiful species-rich grasslands as well. So that will be a key focus for us too.
That's great. That's great. Thanks very much, Aisling. I think we've covered most of the questions at this stage. I know James said at the outset that the group is interested in broadening and finding more people who are interested. And obviously, if we have people that are in specific areas and adjoining farms or adjoining areas, then there may be specific actions that could be done at a group level or whatever the case may be. So if anyone is interested, that I'll give you a few ways of contacting us before the evening is out. If Declan is there, if you want to put up the flyer there on the screen. There we go. Okay, so as we bring tonight to an end, tonight's webinar to a close, I just bring your attention here, thanks for putting that up, to some events that are going to be taking place here in the coming weeks. You can see there on the 2nd of September up in Francis McSherry's farm up in Kinloch. I think it's Largy Donald up around the top of the mountain there, heading for Kinloch. The time hasn't been confirmed, but likely to be in the evening, and that will be focusing on biodiversity. And then as we come down the county on the 16th of September, there's one targeting water quality. Hopefully on both we'll have a number of different stands and a number of different things to see. And that's on the farm of Frank Whitney, just the Carrick side of Leitrim village there, just outside Leitrim village. And we really hope that you'd like to come along, share it with your friends. That will be put up on social media and probably in the print media as well. And hopefully word of mouth will carry them as well. Maybe the weather might help as it has in recent weeks.
I'm sure we'll have a presence there as well, Cian, because it'll be important for us as well.
Yeah, so a great place to come along and meet the people on the Hen Harrier project and learn a bit more about that side of things as well. So for further information on the initial project, this initial project, or on the Leitrim Sustainable Agriculture Group, you will find details on social media, or you can contact myself or James or John or Jerry McGorty, or anyone else that's involved with the group. You will pick it up and it will be quite widely circulated in the coming weeks. That's it for this evening. Hopefully we'll get to see a number of you in the coming weeks, and hopefully friends or family at some of these events. Many thanks for joining us. That's it for this evening. Good night.
Thanks very much, Cian. And thanks to everyone for attending. And thanks very much to our two excellent speakers, Caroline and Aisling.
Here, here. Well done, guys. That was fantastic. And Aisling, a great introduction there to the biodiversity plan. And like there's huge credit to Leitrim County Council there in terms of pushing that out. And some of the initiatives, I think Caroline will feed very nicely into the kind of actions and support the farmers in delivering better habitats, right? And achieving higher scores. And point you made that I think is very important is giving the farmers a bit of ownership of the process. It's not somebody coming out and say, you made it clear in your presentation, you do this X, Y, and Z. Like what we say is, this is what we'd like you to achieve, and then it's up to you how you do it. So Aisling, that kind of, like, I really believe in farmer training. I think that that sometimes we have a high expectation, right, that farmers can do it without getting the training. They spend their whole lifetimes training to be farmers in terms of dairy, beef, sheep, upland, or whatever. But I think we underestimate sometimes how much biodiversity is, managing habitats is not by ignoring them. They have to be managed by definition. So I think it was lovely presentations. I think we got a good message across to our audience, and I just can't thank you all enough for the effort. And Cian, you're entitled to go on holidays now. Anyway.
Thanks, Owen. 2 days off. That's the holiday this time. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay, thanks to everybody. That's it for this evening. Good night. Hope to see you in the coming weeks.